Albert Breer's newest article has a lot of information about the Bears, and we break that down next on the Unbearable Sports Podcast.
I'm going to take the North and never give it back.
So that's a good pick. You get the corner. I got to go bold, right? I got to go bold for this.
Yeah, she's got some nice long
Welcome back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Barron. Make sure to like and subscribe out there on YouTube and rate that show 5 stars everywhere that you get your podcast, especially Apple Podcast. We continue to give away that Darnell Wright jersey, just 5 stars on Apple Podcast. Link down below in the description, and you can easily be in the run-in. What is going on? My voice is still recovering from the 2-hour live show we had yesterday. I hope that the audio listeners, I tried to describe it as much as we could, but yeah, it was a lot longer than expected, but it was an absolute blast. For those that weren't there, make sure to check it out. It was super fun, but I will be posting what the roster is out on YouTube and out on social media, so make sure to stay tuned. But let's get into some news, shall we? So this week is the start of the franchise tagging sequence. So tomorrow you can now tag people, and now some of the potential tags that we need to be on the lookout for, obviously Jalen Johnson. That is the biggest one for the Bears. I think it's a no-brainer. I think he's going to be tagged. I think that tomorrow we're going to know about it, and we'll be like, all right, I'll be talking to you guys 24 hours from now, talking about the Bears franchise tagging Jalen Johnson. That's kind of my expectation. And if he doesn't get tagged tomorrow, don't worry. There's still like a lot more time in order for him to get tagged. So tomorrow is just when they can start placing the tags on people. But then next, some defensive ends, Josh Allen, Brian Burns. Bears could leverage another defensive end on the other side. And like we talked about yesterday, the big question is just, do you want to invest in that heavily? Then safeties Kyle Duggar and Antoine Winfield Jr. The safeties just to kind of look out for. Running backs, I don't know if the Bears would want to actually sign one, but Saquon and Josh Jacobs, 2 to look out for. T. Higgins and Michael Pittman at the wide receivers, and Justin Madubuike and Christian Wilkins at the D tackle spot. But just some people to be at least looking out for. But let's get into this whole Albert Breer article. I think every Monday I could just do an Albert Breer Monday morning quarterback. He does such a great job for SI, even though I thought that SI basically fired everybody. But, I mean, I get keeping Albert Breer because what he does with the Monday morning quarterback is absolutely phenomenal. But he released a whole bunch of different details out there. And one of the first parts, like there's 5 key parts that I want us to break down with the article. First, he talked about some premium, it's kind of the premium trades for that top 3 picks. So what he was quoted saying was, those 3 picks have very real premium. Those 3 picks have very real premium value right now. And my guess would be there'll be at least some preliminary trade talks on them, whether it's coming from the teams holding the picks or teams looking to get them in Indianapolis this week. And he did talk a little bit more about these top 3 picks because we said this, 2 episodes ago, that the top 3 is super, super crucial because people are seeing Jaden Daniels as maybe that QB3. I think the scouting combine, and obviously there's still 2 months, more than 2 months until the draft. There's still a lot that can happen with the draft boards, but the idea is still Drake May is 2, Caleb Williams is 1, and Jaden Daniels is going up some draft boards. He went down the PFF board, but he's going up a lot of other people's boards. So they might go 1, 2, 3 from the quarterback position because, as Albert Breer illustrated in the actual article, he did say that a lot of people see that there's a drop-off between those 3 quarterbacks and then everybody else. So a lot of people see it's those 3, and then you get to your Bo Nix, your Michael Penix, your J.J. McCarthy. Those are all lumped together. But let me know what you think. Do you agree with that? I know that I've said I'm not a huge supporter of Jaden Daniels. I don't see it, and I've heard other people kind of agree with me as well. I don't really see it because I don't think he's as great as Lamar Jackson, but if he makes a premium for top picks, I'm more than fine with that. So let's go over to the next big piece, and that is actually that the trade talks have started with Justin Fields. Let's talk a little bit more about what actually was said from Albert Breer. He said Chicago staffers got inquiries from from other teams on fields in Mobile. And while the Bears haven't shopped Fields, those conversations did allow the team to start to gauge the 2021 first rounders worth there on the market. And I think that the key piece here was while the Bears haven't shopped Fields, I think that's key because it shows and it paints the picture of what's going on. It shows that what the Bears are doing is that they're just listening, right? And if you want to talk about it, you want to talk about it. And people going up, hey, what are you going to do? Hey, I like Fields. This is great. This shows that the Bears aren't the ones that are dangling the carrot. What's actually going on is people have interest. And no matter what, like we've said on this show, Bears should always show that they have interest in Caleb Williams to drive the price up. And they should also not seem so desperate to get rid of Justin Fields. And it seems like that's exactly what's going on. So bravo to Ryan Poles just from this little tiny brief article. Seems like everything is going to plan. And hey, I know some of you might say, well, that means that the Bears aren't looking to move on. There's still a lot of time, but there is something that Albert Breer said a little bit about the actual decision and when he thinks the decision will be made. So what he was saying about this, about the decision, said the Bears are meeting over the next couple weeks to finalize plans at quarterback, like we kind of expected, with the expectation that they'll have a plan in place in Indianapolis next week. So Indianapolis, the scouting combine, we talked about that. The scouting combine is when things are going to really kind of take place. And I think that this makes sense. We've talked about this before, that with Ryan Poles, he is going to, like right now, he's evaluating all the quarterbacks. And right now, you're assessing the talent. Who is the top on your draft boards? They have enough time to say, here's where we see Caleb Williams. Here's where we see Drake May, Jaden Daniels, and also where we even see our own quarterback. Also, where do we see the other quarterbacks too? And then from there, now you get to talk to them. Now you get to do the interviewing. Now you get to see who they are. And from all records, it shows that Ryan Poles is someone that really kind of drills in and wants to make sure you are mentally tough. With Darnell Wright, he did that. He was really wanted to make sure that he was smart, that he was quick, that he understood the pressures of playing in the NFL. I trust Ryan Poles. I think that he's going to do a great job at really trying to identify that quarterback. Is it in this crop of guys? Is there someone that he believes that he can hitch his wagon to? And then from there, like we said, next week, after that week, there's going to be some, I think that that's when we're going to start to understand where the Bears are truly going to go. And hopefully there's a trade of some sort so that we at least know. Because this is why also the trade might happen a week or two afterwards, just like it did last time. And the reason why, in Albert Breer's article, what he talked about was this was a little bit on the idea of how he traded for DJ Moore, right? He said Poles wanted to have clarity in what he'd be working with in free agency. I just want to focus on that top quote right now. And what that means is it makes sense, right? He wanted to know what he was working with in free agency because he wanted a veteran player. And also from Albert Breer's article, what he said, this time around, the likelihood is the principal in such a trade would be a veteran player, and naturally more teams have a quarterback need now than will be the case a month from now. So it makes sense, again, if you're going to trade Fields, to do it soon. So the idea is that you give people, like if they're moving on from Fields, you should trade it to the teams so that they know who that quarterback is. But also from the Bears side, if they get a player, and also we have Danielle Hunter out here where the fans mocked him to the Bears, right? If the Bears wanted to get a Danielle Hunter, you want to know, hey, if we end up keeping Fields and trading the first pick, are we getting Jonathan Allen? Are we getting someone else that is going, a veteran that gets a pretty hefty deal, a Christian Barmore or anything like that? If we get one of these veterans, that affects the salary cap. So you don't want to just go right into free agency and be like, all right, let's add this $18 million defensive tackle now in a trade, right? That makes things a little bit more difficult. So that's why I think that ultimately the Bears get something done a couple weeks after the scouting combine before free agency begins. And it sounds like Albert Breer kind of agrees with that and kind of echoes the same sentiment. It makes sense from a business, from a team building perspective. So that's where I do think that the Bears get something done after the scouting combine, or there's more clarity on where the Bears will go. So let's talk a little bit about Albert Breer's take, though. All this stuff going around, but what was Albert Breer's take on what we should do at quarterback 1? Now, what he said about this. Now the Bears love Fields as a person and really like him as a player. So I would say that whatever they do in the next few weeks will be with respect to a guy who gave them a lot physically and otherwise over the last 3 years. But I think the reality for Chicago will be that the talent of Caleb Williams plus the chance to reset the quarterback on a rookie contract clock will be too much for Chicago to pass on. We'll see. And then another phrase that he said at the top of the article was, now my guess would be the Bears stay where they are and take Williams at 1. So Albert Breer, phenomenal work that he did just with all the different pieces that went on there. And it's great to just kind of get some of this information from someone who knows a lot of info around the league. And also this kind of backs up a lot of the stuff that we have talked about on the show. That's the scouting combine is going to be the big switch. What is going to happen? Because that is when they actually get to talk to the quarterbacks and figure out who is going to be the next franchise quarterback or stay as the franchise quarterback for the Chicago Bears. But if you like what you're seeing right now, make sure to like and subscribe out there on YouTube. Only 90% of you that are watching this right now are not subscribed. So make sure to click that subscribe button out there on YouTube. Also, make sure to download the podcast. You can listen to this on the go. Just get it everywhere that you get your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. All those are great. And with that, Unbearable Sports Podcast, we are out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair and